Hey guys, hey, it's Melissa. Thanks for joining me tonight, guys. I'm getting ready to shower and get to bed soon, but I did want to share, if you want to look at my community channel, Matt Walsh has a very interesting video that I had watched part of it with a divorce attorney and his view on what happens from his perspective and what he sees in the divorce world, what kind of things he sees. He says it's kind of like when someone gains 800 pounds and they're at their very end of their rope instead of having maintained their marriage. That's kind of what it's like. So this is a really interesting video if you want to watch this. He talks about the legality of marriage, which is something that politicians make, compared to what God says marriage is, which is a sacrament and a covenant before Him. And, whether your marriage, Leandro talked about this in an email with me, whether your marriage is conceived out of a religious reason or not, God tells us to honor all marriages, right? Marriage is honorable before all. So, when my marriage became a Christian marriage, it had a spiritual side to it, which meant nobody is to break that. No man is to break it. And when you have a spiritual marriage, there is a bond of intimacy that is different than without that. And what happens in divorce, this man was saying, and it's true, is you are weaponizing intimacy against one another. So, couple things I found interesting, and I just watched part of it, and I didn't even finish it. But not only is it a sacrament, but if you just make it a legal paper, a legal thing, that changes throughout the years. We see now marriage is okay between gay people. Some people feel like, well, let's turn marriage into marriage with 2 or 3 people, and I think this attorney was saying now, if parents do not say that their children their gender can be affirmed, you're not a fit parent, which we know that is not true. So, if you're going to talk about marriage and parenting, you want to base it on truth, right? Not lies. So, what else did he say? Let me see, there's a couple things I wrote down, but I'm just going to talk some more about a couple other things. So, I had a comment on my channel today, a comment about how I said, I did a video about how your children, when they're 18, they're pretty much on their own. But it doesn't mean that you don't see your kids, right? Because they're adults. You still care about them. And this person said they were a mother and they will always help their kids because they love their kids, right? We'd have to define what help is. If you, in the case of my husband, are not going to, if you're going to run to your parents every time something happens, you're not becoming your own man. You're not. It's very clear the Bible says you are to leave your parents and cleave to your wife. And when you have, someone, I think it was Leandro, on his email, he's like, what's so bad about him seeing his parents? Well, he didn't just go see his parents. He actually went behind my back and brought his parents back into our marriage like he did years ago when he betrayed me. That is a big no-no, right? I've never gone to my parents and been like, oh, wow, my husband does this or that. You don't do that. When you're an adult, you keep certain things in your marriage, right? You keep certain details and everything in your marriage. You have a certain promise to one another, a certain amount of confidentiality, right? You don't go running to people, blabbing your mouth, saying things that are not true. And that's just weaponizing intimacy against the other person, and that's what my husband did. So, I had talked to someone today, and they had gotten engaged, and I was just like, I'm very happy for you. That's great. And everyone loves a good engagement story, and how did the man do it? And I was thinking when this person was telling me this about Jace Robertson, and how he had, the Robertson family, they were very poor years ago, and he had stuck a engagement ring in a plant, to Missy. And, it's never about the money. He was creative. It's never about how many carats a ring is. It's never about, the whether you have money or not. For me to be called a gold digger when I married my husband with a $10 ring is ridiculous, right? I got a ring at a pawn shop for $10, and I wore it for, my goodness, for years and years and years before we finally updated to him having a ring and me having a ring that was a little bit nicer. And we went to Sears, and it was like $50, I think, for each of us to get a ring. So it's never been about money in my marriage. And we see all this stuff with I was watching tonight all this stuff with Stormy Daniels, and it's all over the news. And do I believe she's lying? Absolutely. I do not believe her for 1 minute. Whether they did have sex or not, it's the other stuff that she's added to it, like she was traumatized and she blacked out and all this stuff. So is that what marriage is about? I mean, Melania is like, we're not hearing a lot from her. Is that what marriage is? It's okay because you're married, you know that your husband, is a certain way. Is it okay to have affairs? I mean, who defines what marriage is, right? So it's between one man and one woman. God has defined it. He's made some pretty clear, boundaries with what marriage is. And part of that is to have children within that marriage and to raise them up for Him, and to teach them, about Him, and to have safety in society with families, right? So when the family is getting knocked down, you're bringing society down. So one of Satan's biggest lies is that marriage is okay. That's one of divorce is okay. That it's okay to divorce because of this, or because of that, or because of this. And they're very, very stupid reasons usually. People will divorce over, well, we just couldn't get along, or, well, of course you can get along. It's a choice. It's a choice every single day, whether you choose, just like the food you eat, whether you choose to love and honor someone, or whether you choose not to. So that's pretty much the bottom line here with marriage. It's always a choice, just like we have the freedom every day to choose whether we're going to get up and get to work, or whether we're going to spend money. And for people who really, have divorced, why did you get married, right? That's the question, because, you just destroyed, your spouse's life. Well, you tried to. You didn't destroy it. Because you know what? It says in the Bible, in the story of Joseph, that you meant it for evil. You intentionally meant to harm me. You meant it for evil, but God used it for good. In the story of Joseph, we see how he had many, many trials, left for dead a couple times. A couple people in my life have left me for dead. One was the abortion, the forced abortion. I could have died right there, and my child did die. And the other one was my husband, who pretty much left us for dead. So when people do that to you, I've had people say, how can you forgive him? How can you, I even sent an email and said, hey, I'm coming up to New Hampshire and getting my storage. Would you, I'd appreciate it if you could help me with some storage. Is there something that you want in there? Let's go for a motorcycle ride. Usually if you can resolve an issue, you can usually snap right back into right where you were, almost as if no time had gone by. But people are like, how could you, just forgive him? And do you, questions people ask, would you really want him back if he came back to you? Seriously? Because he's just going to do it again. So, you've got to really, it's a choice. You've got to love like Christ, and you've got to be like, okay, these are the choices I'm making. So for me, just accepting that this guy was not the guy I thought he was is a huge, like I just did a video about this, a huge step forward. But when we talk about marriage, it's a choice, and anyone who says, oh, it's okay to divorce, it is a huge deception. Okay, thanks for joining me, guys.